Now that you're back for part 2, it means you did enjoy part 1, or you're here to make fun of me. Either way, I appreciate you for joining us for part 2, where we will start adding our animations. Now, first thing that we need to do is let's make this go away. And to do that, let's just add a display onto our hamburger menu. What I want to do is we want to trigger the menu, and we just want it to let us know if the hamburger menu should open, if it's open, and all that. So we're going to keep all that information. In our app.js, we don't need that. All we need to do is be in our header.js. In here, we're going to bring in UseState from React. And the UseState, we're going to track if our hamburger menu is open, should it be open, should we close it, if we closed it, all that stuff, okay? And it's going to track that. So let's go ahead and create a const array state, and then we're going to set state. We're going to use state, and then inside our use state is where we'll define what we need to define. So, and in here we'll define the properties that we need to define. So the first one is going to be called initial. And what initial is going to represent is the initial load of our project or our app. So once our project is loaded, is the state open? Initially, we're going to say, no, it's not. So initial is going to represent false. Initial will only run one time, and that's when the project is loaded. So we just need to worry about it once, and then the next thing we need to worry about is a click. Okay, so let's go ahead and, oh my God, where's the comma? There it is. The next property we're adding is clicked, and clicked is going to be set to null. And then finally, we can add menu name. I hate all this crap that it just brings in. It's so annoying. Next, we're going to bring in a menu name or right menu name. I keep saying bringing in, but we're not really bringing in anything. We're just writing menu name. Let's go ahead and put menu. Menu name will represent our menu. So it's going to go from menu to close, which is why I'm bringing it in here. Clicked will represent if we clicked on our hamburger menu. Initial will represent if the hamburger menu is initially loaded, which is false. So when the project loads initially, this will be set to false. Clicked is null, and the reason it's null is because we were never given the option to even click the hamburger menu. So it's not going to be true or false. But when we do click our hamburger menu, this will turn to false and initial will be turned to null, meaning we don't need this anymore. This won't have any say in our project anymore, all right? So initial, clicked, and menu name will represent if our menu is open, this will turn to close. And if the menu is closed, this will just be menu. So with that done, let's move on. Next, we're going to create a function called handle menu. And this function will be specific to our button. So when we click our button, this function will run, and all this function is doing is just manipulating the state. In here, we are going to write an if state. So we're first going to say if state dot initial is set to false, and which is true, we are going to write set state, and we're setting the state for initial to null. We're setting clicked to true, and we're setting the menu name to close. Now what this means is if state initial is false, which is true because our app just loaded, it's going to be set to false, and we click on this function, this statement is going to be ran. So we click on the menu button, this is going to be ran. So it's going to set the state to an initial of null, clicked true, and when clicked is true, we open up our menu, and we also change the menu name or the menu right here to close. So this will be ran if we first click on our menu the very first time our app is loaded. Next, we can do an else if. So else if the state.clicked is true, we are going to set the state, and we're setting clicked to be the opposite of what state clicked was previously. And I know you could do like a callback function with set state to bring in the previous state, but in this case, this will just make it easier to read, and there isn't really much going on. It's just switching back and forth. So we're setting the state to the opposite of clicked, and then setting the menu name back to menu. We can copy this, and I'll describe this and it will make more sense here in a second. We'll copy this and paste it one more time. And in the second else if, we're switching the state.clicked to be set to false. And if it's false, we're switching the menu name to close. So I know it seems repetitive with the first and the last one, but what's happening here is this is only being ran when the app is first opened. Once the menu is then toggled, these two will just go back and forth between open or close. And to better represent this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a console log of 1. And then in here, we'll set a console log of 2. And our third else if we'll set a console log of 3. Let's save this. And then in our button, what we can do is on every on click, so it's just going to be on click here, we are going to run the handle menu function. Save that. And what's going to happen is when we click the menu, it's going to run this first one, and then moving on from there, it's going to jump between the 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. Let's take a look here. Let's refresh the page. And when we click menu, the very first one is ran, which is 1. Then it's going to run 2, and it's going to run 3, and it's going to run 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. And the reason I am needing 1 is because of the animations. We wanted to know the difference between the first time it's clicked on when the app is loaded, and then when it's clicked just to open when we've clicked it several times. So you can see it just jumps back 2 and 3. The first one is just in terms of initial loading. I know I've kind of drilled that in your head, but I do want it to make sense. So let's remove the console logs. Now, one more thing I need to add is with our menu, I want to prevent spam from being happened. So I want to make the button disabled for a second or two once the button's first clicked, and then re-enabling it again. This is to prevent spam from happening and ruining the hamburger menu from opening and closing. It's just not the best in terms of user experience, and it causes a lot of speed issues. So let's do that. We can use another state. So let's do const disabled. And then we could do set disabled, and we'll say UseState, and we'll set this to false. Now we'll create a function that will let us know if the menu should be disabled or not. So let's just make a comment for us. We'll determine if our menu button should be disabled. Now we can just do a function called DisableMenu. Now the first thing we can run is we could do a set state or set disabled in our case. And we'll set to whatever the opposite of disabled currently is. It's false right now, so it'll be set to true. And once that's set to true, let's do a set timeout. And we'll want to set disabled back to false. And we want this to run every 1200 milliseconds. And where we want this to be ran is on every handle menu function call. So every time we click the button, we want this to run, as well as determine what our state should look like. Now to get this working, we need to add a disabled attribute and let this be determined by our disabled state. So if we set true, of course, it's going to be disabled, but every time we click, it's going to determine if this changes. So if I open up the console, and let's take a look at our menu button. Now, every time we click on our menu button, it should go disabled, which it does right here. And then after 1.2 seconds, it should be enabled again, or it should be available to click. So you can see it does that every single time. All right, that's just to prevent spam. So we definitely need that. Now, to let us know if we should toggle the menu or not, here is where we'll start coding out the hamburger.js. What we're going to do is we're going to pass state as a prop so that we can access it in our hamburger.js. And to do that, inside the hamburger component, we just say state is going to be state. Now it allows us to access state inside hamburger.js. Now we'll want to bring in a use effect. So let's bring in use effect from our React, and we'll just do use effect up here. We still need to do other things, but let's just be able to toggle the menu back and forth. Now I did mention we need to access state, so let's do that by just using state like that, adding the brackets and putting state. And now we can find out what state is. So in our use effect, we're going to run an if statement, and we're going to know if state has been clicked, or if the state's been altered. We want it to open the menu. If it hasn't been altered, we want it to close, and just back and forth. All right. And to do that, we can just write an if statement. So if state.clicked is set to false. Here is where we close our menu. So close our menu. I can't spell, okay. And then we're gonna do an else if. We're going to say state.clicked is equal to true. This is going to open up our menu, but we need to also open up our menu on the initial screen when it hasn't been clicked before. And to do that, what we need to do is, so this 2 lines here is going to represent or. So if this is true, it's going to run, or if something else is true, it's going to run also. So we're going to say state.clicked.true, and we want the state.initial to be set to null, meaning that it's been clicked before. So and state.initial has been set to null, meaning it's already been clicked. We go back to our header. Every time we set the initial to null, it means we've clicked it at least once. So this right here lets us know it runs for the first time. This is why I set an or rather than another if statement, and then state click true. So this means, if we open this here, this means we are going to open our menu. Now let's create a very, very quick demo without any animations. And to do that, if we open up our app SaaS, we can see hamburger menu is set to display none. So let's just toggle that back and forth, all right? We can use a useRef just so that we can gain access to the hamburger menu DOM element. And we can say up here is let menu assigned to a useRef of null. And then in our hamburger menu, we can do ref L for element is going to, is going to equal menu. All right, so menu L. Now let's do this. We can do menu dot style dot display, and we'll just set this to none. This is going to set our display none, and this is going to set display flex. So our menu is open, it's going to open up the menu. Our menu is closed, it's going to close our menu. When we refresh the page, it's already going to be closed. When we click menu, it's going to open, but it's going to look really ugly. I think it's because I put flex. Let's switch this to block. We click the menu, it opens up our menu, and then we click menu again, it closes it. And you can notice I can't spam it, so I can't go back and forth. And I'm sure you could hear the mouse. So we open it. Well, let's open up the dev tool so that we can look at our menu. We open up our menu, it sets the button to disabled, and then it re-enables it again, and then we close it. And so we can just go back and forth now. But inside these if statements is where our GSAP animations will start running rather than display block or the display none. So let's get rid of that. Now there's an issue with this. It's working and everything. It looks great so far, right? But the issue is when we select a link, we can see the page is not doing anything, right? The routes are changing, but nothing is going on here. So if I select opportunities and close the menu, it says discovering our opportunities. If I open up the menu and select solutions, it's not hiding our menu or anything is happening, but the routes are working just as fine. Even if I select the home page, the menu is not going away. And to fix that, we can easily go back to our header. And here's where we want to bring in with the router from React router DOM. And we want to wrap our header with this with router. And with router will give us access to the history prop, which we need. And with this history prop, we will be able to determine if the URL has been changed. So we will see if the URL is changed, and then we will execute a certain command on if it's changed or not. This means we do need to bring in a UseEffect. So bring in UseEffect from React, and let's add some comments just so we can clean this up. State for disabled button, and then we can just add state for menu. And underneath the states, we can add a UseEffect for page changes. So let's go ahead and write that use effect. What we're going to do is we are going to listen for page changes. All right, and to do that, all we need to do is write history dot listen, and then run a function. And this function is going to set state. This is going to set the state of clicked false and menu name to menu. So this is just kind of getting rid of the menu that's opened and setting the menu name back to menu rather than close. But it's getting an error because we don't have history being called in. So we could just add a brackets and then bring in history. Let's save this and preview our project. And we get an error because I do not know how to spell listen. Let's add an S and save that. Now, if I open up the menu and go to a page, it will close the menu and it changes the pages. Now we're on opportunities, we'll click solutions and it'll switch back to solutions that help. Now, of course, it's not going to be this choppy between pages. So if I open up the localhost 3000, the menu already has that animation. And when I switch pages, the menu closes with the animation as well. And the pages do change. That's how it's going to look. But this is very bare bones. We are building a foundation. We are setting the functionality and making sure everything works. And then all the pretty animation stuff come later. With that being said, here is where we can start animating. Now, to every animation project, we need to be able to access the DOM nodes. Let's close header.js and hamburger.js. And we need to use useRef to make sure we can access these DOM elements. We could use children and siblings to access, but that gets a little complicated. For this project, I'll just be mapping out our useRefs with the different DOM nodes that we need to access. We've already got one down, which is menu. Menu represents the hamburger menu. Let's go ahead and bring in the others. I'll first create the variables. So let's just create copies of the menu. And for our first one, we are going to say reveal menu. And our next one is going to be reveal menu background. Then we'll go ahead and add a city background. And we'll let the last three all represent line 1, 2, and 3. And lines 1, 2, and 3 will represent those three navigations that we have. Finally, we'll create one more, and this will represent info. This is definitely not the cleanest way of doing it, but it's just the easiest way of doing it. Now we've got our variables defined, we need to assign them to each DOM element. Now we've got our variables created, we just need to assign them to its corresponding DOM node. We'll go ahead and scroll down and we can copy and paste this to our first three. So the menu secondary background color is going to get the menu reveal background. So just make sure you replace menu. The reveal menu is going to get the menu layer class name. Next, our three links here are going to get the refs for line 1, line 2, and line 3. Make sure we can go ahead and paste all that here. Change reveal menu to line 1. Then the second line is going to get line 2. And the third line will get line 3. Our info is going to get the info variable. So look for the info class name and set that here. So it's going to be info. And that's going to do it for all of our refs. Now these variables will represent each DOM node so that we could access them and animate them. Let's go ahead and add a comment to let us know what these are. So we can say vars for our DOM nodes. We can say animated DOM nodes. This means we can get rid of this menu style display none and menu style display block. We're going to first work on the animations of closing our menu. So let's get that going. We are going to need to import GSAP. So go ahead and import GSAP from GSAP. And we're working with GSAP version 3 here. So we can just say GSAP.to. And we're adding an array because we're animating two different items. The first element we're animating is the reveal menu. And the next one will be the reveal menu background. And then we can just set the configurations in here. The duration of this animation is going to be set to 0.8. We're setting the height to 0. The ease will be set to a power 3. And I want to say it's going to be in out. Finally, we are adding a stagger, and this stagger will be set to an amount of 0.07. Let's save that. And we aren't going to be able to look at that animation yet. I want to say maybe if we set the menu to a display block, so menu.style.display set to block, maybe we can see how it will exit. Save that. When we open it, we can see that it just opens right away because we're just setting it to a display of block. And when we close, the animation should occur where it swipes up and has a stagger effect between the black background and the red background. That stagger effect is coming from this stagger property. We are adding a delay or an amount of 0.07. And again, we are animating the reveal menu first, then the reveal menu background, which is, this is the red and this is the black. Once this is sort of animated out, we want to set the display to none. So we can say GSAP.to, and in here, we'll just let the menu be set to display none, since the menu is going to be the parent of both of the reveals. All right, so the reveal menu background, its parent is just this menu variable. In here, we can set a duration. We already opened it, so we can set a duration of 1 second. And then we can access CSS and set the display to display none. Let's save this, and if we preview, the same thing is going to happen where it reveals out, but it's going to finish the animation, then set the display none because we aren't using that hamburger menu anymore. Now I set a duration of 1 because we want to wait until the animation is finished before we set the display to none. If I set this to 0, the animation will not work. Let's refresh the page, open up menu, close menu. That is ran instantly, and animations just don't exist because it's going to display none right away. So let's wait until that animation is finished by adding a duration of 1. That's going to do it for our close. So that's done for our close right there. We can then jump into what should happen when our menu opens. What should our animation look like? All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So once it's open, what we can do is we can copy this GSAP.to menu with the duration of setting it to display on. We can copy this and paste it in here, except we'll change the display none to block, and we'll change the duration to 0. If we jump into our project and open it up, this should set the display to block with a duration of 0, so it should open up right away. And if we close this, it will swipe back out. If we click menu again, we can see nothing is working. And it's because it's kind of broken in a way. So we are setting the height to 0 when we close our menu here, but when we try to open it again, we aren't defining the height at all. So that means we need to set a height of when we open it back to 100%. And that's what we're going to do right here. Now underneath the display block, we can set another GSAP.to. And we'll want the reveal menu and the reveal menu background to pretty much have a height of 100%. So go ahead and set reveal menu background, and the second one's going to be reveal menu. This will have an effect of setting it to a height of 100%, allowing us to open it up again. So the duration is going to be set to 0. The opacity is going to be set to 1, and the height is going to be set to 100%. Make sure you add quotations because this 100% won't work otherwise. If we preview our project and open up our menu, we can see it opens up right away, and then it should fade out. Wait that 1 second until the menu is enabled again. And if we open it again, we can see it actually works in terms of opening it again. So we can keep opening and closing it without an issue. And that is because we set the height back to 100%. Next up, we can run our animations in terms of getting it to swipe. I kind of don't want to just write GSAP2 anymore here. Let's create some functions just so that we can see that we can actually plug in functions and make it look a little cleaner. And you can do this for all of it. And then you can actually separate the animations, import them in, and then run them in here. We might do that towards the end of the project, but I just want to start it kind of now with the new functions we'll be running. So outside of our use effect, we can just define a function for our animation. So we could do const, and we'll just write stagger reveal. And again, this isn't changing anything. It's just kind of separating it to be outside of the use effect, and we can just call it. So const stagger effect, it's going to take in 2 parameters. So the first parameter is going to be node1, and the next one's going to be node2. And it's going to run a function. And in here, we could just do gsap.from. And the 2 items we are targeting are going to be node 1 and node 2. We can then describe the configurations we want. Can you stop following me? Sheesh. Now the animation that will occur here is going to give us that reveal. So let's do a duration of 0.8. The height is going to be 0. We're going to transform origin, and we're transforming the origin from right top, and then we're adding a skew of y, not a skew of y of 2. The ease is going to be the same ease we use all the time, which is power3.inout. I want to start using custom easing just because I think that I have a better cubic Bezier easing than the power3 in out. It's just you have to pay for that additional in terms of like getting a GSAP Pro member or something. So then we're doing a stagger set to an amount of 0.1. Now this is kind of useless because we aren't running anything in our use effect. So to do that, what we could do is inside our else if right here, once the animation of setting this to 100% is ran, we can just do stagger reveal and then pass in the 2 DOM nodes or the 2 variables that we want to represent these parameters. So node 1 is going to represent the first reveal or the reveal menu background. Then the second parameter is going to represent the reveal menu. So we can just drop these 2 in here and save that. So save this and let's preview our project. If we click menu, it should give us that reveal effect. Okay, so what? Okay, so something's broken clearly. And I think what's broken is it's not waiting for state to be finished before it runs the use effect. So what we need to do is we need to set a dependency of state. So we need to wait until state has changed for the use effect to work. So I'll just use it as a dependency. If we save this, let's hard refresh and click menu. You can see now it's fixed. Now it's not broken at all. So that's good. We can then create 2 more function animations. So let's do that one more time. And again, if you're a little confused on why I wrote GSAP here and then wrote a function for GSAP, it's just because I wanted to show you that there's an alternate to making things look a little cleaner. You don't necessarily need to write GSAP a bunch of times. You can extract them out and put them into functions and then just call them like so. To make it even cleaner, like I mentioned before, you can create an animations.js and put all your animations in there. Then simply import the animations that you're going to be using here on hamburger.js and then just run them like so. But to continue on, we need to do 2 more animations. The second animation I'm going to do is going to be called fade in up. So let's change this to fade in up. And fade in up is just going to take 1 parameter. So just change that to node instead of node 1. And we can get rid of the array. We're still going to be using gsap.from, but we can change all the configuration that's in here. So go ahead and erase all of that. The y of this is going to be set to 60. The duration, can we stop VS Code please? The duration is going to be set to 1. The delay, let's do a 0.2 delay. Opacity, it's going to be set to 0. And then the ease is the ease out of the power 3. So just do ease power 3. Sheesh, power3.ease out. In out. I'm still getting used to this latest version of GSAP. We can then bring in fade in up and then pass in the info variable, which represents our infos so that the fade in up runs. Where is it at? This right here, the our promise. So it's just going to kind of just fade in and up. So when I click the menu, we can see our promise just fades in and up. Click it again. Whoop. Cool. We can then do 1 more function for our animations, and I think it's better if we copy the stagger reveal. So the third function animation, what we're going to do here is we're going to pass in 3 parameters. So node 3, pass in node 3 here, and the reason why there's 3 is because there's 3 lines or 3 navigation items. So this is going to represent the 3 links, the opportunity, solution, and contact floating up. To do that animation, we can first switch stagger reveal to stagger text, and we can leave the duration to 0.8. We can add a y of 100, and let's just get rid of this other stuff here. So add y of 100 with the duration of 0.8. The delay is going to be 0.1. So we want it to run first and then run our fade in up, which is why the fade in up has a delay of 0.2. All right, so delay 0.1, and then the ease, let's do a power 3 in out. I think there's a way of just setting like global easing, but I need to look into that in terms of if GSAP allows us to do that. Lastly, we can add a stagger, and this stagger is going to have an amount of 0.3. Let's save this and make sure we run the stagger text function. Run the stagger text function, and the 3 elements you want to pass in is going to be line 1, line 2, and line 3. So go ahead and write line 1, then you want line 2, and then you want line 3. Let's save this and preview our project. If we select menu, we can see the animations work perfectly. What if we add a 0.5 amount on the stagger, and for delay we'll change it to 0.2 just to emphasize the fact that the links are coming in? Okay, I don't think the stagger is working. No, the opportunity, solution, and contact are all coming at the same time. I feel like I'm missing something here. So the thing I'm missing is I put amount with 2 M's, but amount just has 1 M, so let's fix that. And let's preview our project, menu. Okay, so it works, but this is definitely emphasized. Now let's just set it back to 0.3, and let's see how it looks. Perfect, so it has that little bouncy effect to it, and I think it looks a lot nicer than for it all just to come in at the same time. One change I would make is I feel like it should come in a little earlier, so 0.1, preview that. Cool. And then you can make all the changes you want to this. Again, it's just a personal preference of when you want the animations to come in. All right, so that's going to conclude it for part 2. We aren't fully done yet. If we pull up the final project, which is localhost 3000, and we open up our menu, we can see when we hover, we kind of have this little turning effect on our links. And when we hover on our cities, we can see we get the cities in the background. So this video did stretch out to be a lot longer than I thought, so part 3 is going to have to happen. Part 3 will cover the text hovers and the city transitions. If you did enjoy this video so far, please leave a like, that truly helps me out. And to run down our final project, we jump into our menu for part 2. None of this works just yet, but we click solutions, it goes to the solutions page. And we click contact us, it'll go to the contact page. So that's gonna do it for me with part 2. Go ahead and check out part 3 if you wanna continue on. If not, go ahead and leave a like, guys. Let me know what you wanna see for future projects, and have a wonderful day.